Thank you very much, Flo, for helping us with the technical side of things. And thank you to JPIC Hub for organizing this webinar today. And I'd like to welcome everybody from all directions of the world. I know that everyone is zooming in from different time zones and places. So I'd like to welcome you, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening. So just welcome to everyone. So today's webinar, we're going to touch on the topic of Indigenous wisdoms and what they contribute to the world and to the church. And we have a very interesting program ahead of us. I personally have worked with and lived with Indigenous peoples for quite a few years in my life. And one of the things that I have learned is to listen, or I am learning to listen, and to allow people to speak for themselves. So I'd like to begin this webinar with the Haudenosaunee Thanksgiving Address, which comes from some Indigenous groups in North America. And it is the way that they begin all of their meetings and gatherings. And more than a prayer, it's actually a thanksgiving, putting ourselves in that stance of gratitude for all the life that we are part of. So I'm going to share my screen. First of all, for those who don't know me, I'm Sheila Smith, RSCJ. I'm living in Rome on the General Council, so I'd like to welcome anyone who has just joined us. And now our minds are one. And we give thanks to the Haudenosaunee who have generously shared this Thanksgiving address with the world. It's available on the internet, and I will put the link to it in the chat for anyone who would like to go back to that. Today, we have a very interesting program, but before I introduce our speakers, what I'd like to do is just share with you a little bit of what Indigenous people have been saying to us that the JPIC hub has produced an infographic, which maybe Rochelle can put the link to that in the chat, that shares with us some of the realities of Indigenous peoples worldwide, and that we will be exploring today some of the contributions and some of the struggles that Indigenous peoples have living in the system of the world as we know it today. So one of the things that we find on this infographic is that there is actually no official definition of Indigenous peoples by the UN. There's nothing that defines every Indigenous group in the same way. The way Indigenous peoples understand themselves include through the kind of criteria of self-identification, historical continuity with the pre-settler societies, pre-colonial societies, and they have distinct systems and cultures and a commitment to preserve the heritage and the environments in which they live. So we don't look for a definition of Indigenous peoples because they define themselves, as do all peoples. On the infographic, we also find numbers of Indigenous peoples throughout the world, and we discover that Indigenous peoples number at least 476 million people across more than 90 countries, and there are over 4,000 languages. Indigenous people play a crucial role in both global development and conservation. Indigenous peoples manage or have rights to about a quarter of the world's land, much of its biodiversity, and many of its protected areas and forests. But despite this, Indigenous peoples around the world face significant challenges. In all of our countries, Indigenous peoples endure widespread discrimination, human rights violations, forced evictions from ancestral lands, and violence against the defenders who are not the original peoples of the lands. Although Indigenous peoples make up about 6.2% of the global population, they represent 18.2% of those living in extreme poverty. The infographic that we have available to us also shows some of the countries who have the largest share of populations of Indigenous people, with the highest being in Greenland, who have 89% of their population is Indigenous. And you can see on the infographic some of the other populations. Indigenous peoples throughout the world, although there are so many different cultures and different languages, they experience some of the same violations, such as their human rights being trampled upon, and that includes encroachment on their right to self-determination, trespassing on their right to cultural lands, and the impact of climate change. So I invite you to explore that infographic and to inform yourselves, if you aren't already aware, of the situation in your own countries. I'm going to now move to our presentation, and we are going to listen to 3 speakers. We will have first from Torpa, India, Maria Elena Figueroa, who is a religious of the Sacred Heart. Maria Elena, she is going to present. Hi, Maria Elena.
Hi, Sheila. Thank you.
You're welcome. Maria Elena is living our mission in India, and her financial training and ongoing formation in the area of rural development have prepared her to take on several leadership roles in the Society of the Sacred Heart. She presently lives the mission of the Society as a community member in Torpa and as the director of the Center for Women's Development. I met Maria Elena in 2016 at the General Chapter of the Society of the Sacred Heart, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your presentation today, Maria Elena, and I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to meet you again. In her life, she feels called to collaborate across frontiers, guided and inspired by the Spirit in a pain-filled world that is bound together by fragile threads that together with others we can strengthen. So we want to thank you, Maria Elena, for your energy and presence with us today. And
Thanks, Sheila.
yeah, I'd just like to share with everyone that your presentation is called Indigenous Cultures and Their Message to the World. And she will present her learnings about 5 major tribes in Eastern India by sharing what she has learned about their wisdom, community living, and the intertwining of spirituality and nature in their tribal practices, architecture, and land rights. Maria Elena will point out some of the main challenges that the tribal peoples face in India, and she will conclude with some steps forward that include honoring and supporting tradition and wisdom. And as part of her presentation, she will share a short video, which will give us a visual perspective of the kind of work that is happening in Torpa. So I now hand it over to you, Maria Elena, and thank you for enriching us with your presentation.
Thanks a lot, Sheila. I'd like to begin by just screen sharing. I want to begin with Johar, a tribal welcome and greeting. I'm really excited for this great learning experience. To hear from each of you, Sheila has just set the tone with that beautiful prayer. To hear experiences, to be part of this JPIC webinar with conversations on the Indigenous people, their traditional wisdom, and their message to the world. And I dedicate my conversations to the Indigenous community that we work with in Torpa. There are 705 ethnic groups recognized as scheduled tribes in India. They represent 8.6% of the total estimated 104 million population of India. In India, we have several laws and constitutional provisions. The 5th schedule for Central India, and the 6th schedule for Northeast India that recognize Indigenous peoples' rights to land and self-governance. But these laws have their limitations. Across India, Indigenous people or tribal people are called Adivasi. Adi meaning early, Vasi meaning settlers. About 1/10 of India's indigenous people, that is around 3.4 million, reside in Chota Nagpur. Chota Nagpur Plateau in northeastern India covers 5 Indian states: Odisha, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, that is former part of East Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, and Jharkhand, where we are working, that was former part of South Bihar. The tribes also live in the northeastern state of Assam, mainly working in the tea gardens and in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The major tribes of Chota Nagpur. We have here in Chota Nagpur, the tribes are recognized by their distinct languages, cultural practices, and traditional occupations. So we can see the Munda tribe, white sari with a red border, the language is Mundari. The Orao, the language is Kuruk, and you can see the weave and the design is different. And we have the Khadiya. Here again, the pattern is different and their language is Khadiya. The Santals have a very colorful checks to their design. Their language is Santali. And the Gond, their language is Gondi, and a very distinct pattern to their weave. In the society, we are blessed to have 5 finally professed RSCJs from the Munda tribe, 3 from the Khadiya tribe, and 1 from the Orao tribe. And we are happy to welcome many more vocations from these tribes. I know Sheila said we have 5 tribes here, but today I will be focusing on one tribe, that is the Munda tribe, that is dominant in this region. The Munda tribe is the earliest known Indian Aboriginal group. The tribe is from the Austroasiatic family. The Munda tribe is the largest tribe in India, and the clan is patrilineal. The clan is of totemic origin, and each clan traces its lineage back to a specific totem, which can be a specific animal or a specific plant that represents their ancestry. And these totems, they act as symbols of identity and shared values within the Munda communities. Often, this choice of the totem is linked to the mythological stories or historical events significant to the clan. The Mundas are warriors and hunters. But in later years, they took to agriculture, mainly the cultivation of rice and millet. Tribal wisdom and community living. To understand Munda culture, I will take you through the lens of the Akra. Akra is a Mundari word. The words we have in front of us, Akra, Hampram, Kobidia, and Giti Ora, are Mundari words. And Akra means Center of Community Management, which we shall see unfolding in the next slides. Hampram Kobidia is knowledge of ancestors, and Giti Ora is sleeping home for young people. Understanding Akra. The term Akra refers to a traditional gathering place where community members come together for various purposes, including rituals, celebrations, and performances. In Hindi, we say akhada, a space for the preservation and transmission of cultural heritage particularly through dance, music, and storytelling. Historically, the origins of Akra can be traced back to ancient tribal practices where nature and spirituality were deeply intertwined. And it is within these sacred spaces that the Adivasi community cultivated a sense of belonging and identity, reinforcing their connection to their land and their ancestors. Architectural features. Accra is often characterized by its unique architectural features. A central open area surrounded by structures made from locally sourced materials. A space designed to facilitate communal gatherings, allowing for the free flow of energy among community members. The layout often reflects the natural environment, integrating elements such as trees and water sources, which hold spiritual significance for the Adivasi people. Now, here in these images, we see indigenous seeds, we see wild flowers, we see forest fruits, we see wild edible plants, and plant powders. And of course, there are also the mushrooms and the traditional medicine. Their food systems are often rooted in traditional ecological knowledge. Assertion of Adivasi rights over land. In every village, we will see stone slabs erected. And these stones mark the Akra. It also means the boundary of the village. Often the family tree of the deceased members is written on the stone, as we can see here. And in the other image, we can see a traditional mud house in the background and a woman pounding grain. And as she's pounding grain, she's singing a song. Be it seasons in nature or agricultural seasons or festivals, there is always a unique composition. Role of Akra in community life. Spiritual practices. A sacred space that serves as a venue for various rituals and ceremonies. The rituals performed are deeply rooted in the Adivasi belief system, which emphasizes the interconnectedness of all living beings and the importance of maintaining balance with nature. These practices often involve offering to deities, invoking blessings for health, prosperity, and harmony within the community. Their supreme god is Singboga, represents the sun god, and is associated with light, life, and fertility. Cultural expression, dance, and music are integral components of life in Accra. They serve not only as forms of entertainment, but also as mediums of storytelling and cultural expression. Traditional dances, often performed during festivals and rituals, reflect the community's history, belief, and values. The dances are typically characterized by rhythmic movements and the use of traditional instruments. Often it is wonderful to see little children. Their feet start tapping and they begin to sway the moment they hear the beat of the drum. Each performance tells a story, whether it is a celebration of nature or a tribute to ancestors or a reflection on contemporary social issues. Through these artistic expressions, the Adivasi community preserves its cultural heritage while adapting to the changing world around them. Community identity. Accra plays a crucial role in fostering community identity among the Adivasi people. It serves as a gathering place where individuals can come together to share experiences, celebrate achievements, and support one another during challenging times. The sense of belonging cultivated with Accra strengthens social ties and reinforces the collective identity of the community. Moreover, the Accra acts as a platform for intergenerational dialogue, allowing the elders to orally pass down knowledge and traditions to younger generations, in Mundari known as Hampram Pobidia. Here we can see in the first image the legendary, I beg your pardon, I'll just drink a little water. Sorry. The legendary freedom fighter and a religious leader, a prominent figure in the Indian independence movement. We can also see musical instruments. This is the nagada that the woman is playing. Excuse me. We see the mandar that the men are playing, a traditional plow used for farming. And these are all household implements, from fishing to cooking to farming. And this is storing grain called the mona. I guess I'm so excited sharing with you about our people that it's my voice also is giving way. Challenges facing Accra. Modernization and urbanization. Despite its cultural significance, the Accra faces numerous challenges in modern times. Rapid urbanization and globalization have led to a decline in traditional practices as younger generations are increasingly drawn to urban lifestyles and contemporary forms of entertainment. There's also the challenge of re-establishing the relation between the tribes and their roots. Loss of land and resources. The Adivasi community's connection to the land is fundamental to their identity. However, encroachment on tribal lands for industrialization and development has resulted in a loss of natural resources and traditional livelihoods. This loss not only impacts the physical space of Accra, but also undermines the spiritual and cultural practices associated with it. Cultural appropriation. As interest in tribal culture grows, there's a risk of cultural appropriation, where elements of Adivasi culture are commodified and they lose their original meaning. This phenomenon will dilute the significance of the Akhara and its practices, leading to a disconnection between the community and their cultural heritage. Revitalizing Akhara. Community engagement. To address the challenges facing Akhara, community engagement is essential. Initiatives that involve local leaders, artists, workshops, cultural practitioners can revitalize cultural practices and strengthen the role of Akhara in community. Through festivals and cultural exchanges and workshops, can provide platforms for showcasing the richness of Adivasi culture and attracting interest both from local and global audiences. In the first image, you can see it's an Adivasi Mahotsav, that's a festival, and the group of dancers are very interested in teaching the audience a different step. Education and awareness, raising awareness about the cultural significance of Akhara is crucial for its preservation. Programs that highlight the history and importance of Akhara can foster appreciation among the younger generations and encourage their active participation in cultural practices. In the second image, our village volunteer engages in activity-based children from a government-run school. Government support and policy. Government support is vital for the preservation of Akhara and Adivasi culture. Policies that protect tribal lands, promote cultural tourism, and provide funding for cultural initiatives can help sustain the significance of Akhara within the community. Collaborations between government agencies and local organizations can lead to the development of programs that empower Adivasi voices and promote their cultural heritage. Reflections on the Akhara. The Akhara stands as a testament to the resilience of the Adivasi community in Jharkhand. It embodies the social, spiritual, and artistic dimensions of their identity, serving as a vital space for cultural expressions and community bonding. As we reflect on the cultural importance of Akhara, it is essential to recognize the interconnectedness of all living beings and the role that traditional practices play in maintaining harmony with nature. By valuing and supporting the cultural heritage of the Adivasi people, we contribute to a more diverse and inclusive understanding of the human experience. The Akhara is not just a physical space, it is a living embodiment of the Adivasi spirit, a place where culture, spirituality, and community converge. As we move forward, let us honor and celebrate the richness of this tradition, ensuring that it continues to thrive in Jharkhand and beyond. And in the picture, you can see one of our community volunteers with a handmade bow and arrow as a warrior tribe. Thank you. Sheila, if we have time, if we have time, then I can go ahead and show the video.
Actually, I'm just wondering if you can hold off on the video.
Yes.
And I'll introduce Father Daryl and we can see your video after. Is that okay?
Sure. Let me just stop sharing.
Sure. So thank you very much for that presentation. And one of the reasons why I love this panel is that we are going to hear some very different perspectives from very different contexts. And so now I would like to introduce to all of you a good friend of mine, Father Daryl Winkler, who is a much-loved priest in the Archdiocese of Ottawa, Cornwall in Canada. He was born in Chicago in the United States and comes from a diverse heritage with an Indigenous mother and an American father. And one of the things about the border between the US and Canada is that they are artificial borders for Indigenous peoples. The tribes, original tribes, did not see rivers and lakes as points of division, but as points of connection. So the people that Darold comes from actually spanned the borders that we have today. So in Canada, there are about 600 First Nations, and there are three groupings of Indigenous peoples in Canada. There are First Nations, there are Inuit people up in the north, and there are Métis people who are mainly out west. But Darold comes from the Ojibwe people, Ojibwe Nation, and which is one of the 600 First Nations. And his specific nation is called Chiching. And he is also one of only 7 Indigenous priests in Canada. His faith and his cultural roots inform and are central to his identity. As I mentioned, I know Darold personally, and I first met him years ago when we were both doing theological studies in Ottawa, which is the city where I come from. And since then, our paths have crossed several times, including the fact that Darold has ministered to my family on a couple of occasions, including attending my father's funeral in my name during the COVID epidemic when I couldn't be there. We've also worked together in different capacities as part of Cattery Native Ministry in Ottawa, which is a ministry committed to the healing, reconciliation, and spiritual growth of Indigenous peoples. Among Darold's academic contributions is a chapter in a recently published book called Where Faith and Life Meet, Adult Faith Education That Transforms. So Darold will present from his perspective as an Indigenous person, living and working in a church and in a dominant culture that is rooted in colonialism. And Canada is in a moment in our history as a country and as a church in which efforts are being made by some to transform the wrongs of our colonial past. And in my experience, Darold is one who not only educates about this, but who lives it. So Darold, I'd like to turn it over to you. And I'd also like to suggest, if you have time after your presentation, because I know you have to leave, you're at a conference, if there are any questions or comments, that we take them right after your presentation, if there are questions or comments for you specifically.
Okay.
Thank
You very much. I'm really thrilled to be here with all of you. I'm in the middle of another conference, and the conference is on, you've probably heard of this, synodality. It's a conference on synodality. It's an important movement that's growing in our church today, where the church is becoming more attentive to listening to voices of people who have been marginalized and who are without power. So we're having a synodal gathering where I'm at today for Canada. What is synodality in a Canadian context? So, and at this gathering, there are about 10%. There's 120 people, and there are about 15 Indigenous peoples from across Canada attending this, because the idea of the conference is we can't have something about Canada without the Indigenous voices present. So it's very meaningful for us. So I'm happy to be here today to talk about Indigenous wisdom and culture. I noticed already very many similarities with what Mary Elena spoke, that Indigenous peoples in the world have faced many similar challenges, for example, land loss, the loss of land. And this is a same, we experience this in Canada. The cultural appropriation is another area that Mary Elena spoke about. We experience it here too, but also the power of revitalization, cultural revitalization, so that it's, while the past has been very brutal for many Indigenous peoples across the world, there is also great hope. I feel that we're at the dawn of a new phase of Indigenous peoples on the planet. And all of us are Indigenous somewhere, but these particular Indigenous groups have suffered a lot, but we're revitalizing. And that's, if anything, that's the point that I would like to express, at least in Canada today. So we, as Sister Sheila mentioned, we're diverse. We are a diverse group in Canada, Indigenous peoples. We're not just one lump. We have diverse cultures, just like in India. Diverse cultures, diverse languages, diversity of opinions. The way we express our faith is different. But there are some commonalities that I'd like to address that we all share, probably around the world. The first is the idea of the land, the sacredness of Mother Earth, that everything that we have comes from this earth. And so there's a reverence for creation and creation spirituality that Native people can bring to the church and to the world. The idea that creation itself is like a spiritual thing. It's not a resource to be mined and pillaged, but it's something that we give thanks for because it already provides for all of our needs. We also think, and this is many Indigenous cultures believe this too, is that we're not humanity is not above creation. You know, this idea of a pyramid that comes to us Catholics from medieval theology, you know, where God is at the top, and then you have the cardinals and the bishops, and then and all the way down, then the laity, and then you have the animals, and all the way down at the bottom is minerals and rocks and all. This kind of pyramidal conception of the creation is opposite to Indigenous forms of creation. All of them in Canada, it's a circle, not a pyramid. We're all interconnected. What happens to one happens to all of us. And I think this is a feature we're all familiar with if we have any familiarity with Indigenous cultures. The second is listening. See, we're at a conference right now on synodality. The Pope Francis said, if we don't listen to each other, then how can we change? How can we have peace? How can we struggle to find better ways to express our faith if we don't listen to each other? It's a challenging experience, but Native people have long gathered in circles to listen to each other because the idea is together we're smarter. Together, we're more wise. Together, we will survive. We will survive any assaults that come our way if we are to get in this together. So listening has been very important. For this reason, elders are revered in most Indigenous communities in Canada as repositories of tradition and culture and wisdom. And okay, so that's number two. First is the sacredness of the land, and then listening. Number three, I would like to mention is healing and ceremonies. So a lot of Indigenous peoples in Canada have had their ceremonies taken away, reduced, and referred to as pagan, as if, you know, there's one culture, one spirituality that is superior to others. So this is a notion of colonization. We're trying to divest ourselves of. We're trying to decolonize and bring back our spiritual practices that allowed us to be strong before the colonization of our peoples. So there are rituals that have been that help us to there's a revitalization of these spiritual practices, like the peace pipe, a smudging, you know, where we purify ourselves, these kinds of things. What else do I want to say? And that There's many things that we can talk about, but one of the things, and this is, I'm coming to the end of my reflection here, is that there are Native people. Now, I was just listening to someone sharing, and there is a monastery not far from here in Canada where the monks believe, these are Catholic monks, they're Cistercians, they believe that their prayer is keeping the world together, that through their praying for the world, somehow their prayer makes a difference, that the world isn't going to spin out of control. And there are different indigenous peoples across North America who have a similar notion. As long as they're praying together as a community, they're going to keep the earth from spinning out of control. I don't know if you have this in other cultures, but there is a kind of prophetic voice in this that says, as long as we're praying, we don't stop praying, the world will not um, um, come to its conclusion. So there's this notion that prayer will save us. Prayer is saving us. There is a prophetic voice, and I'm going to, Laudato Si, that beautiful document that Pope Francis wrote, is so imbued with indigenous values, indigenous perspectives that it's amazing. When I read it, I was completely amazed. The idea that we're all connected is very prevalent. It's over and over in that encyclical, that we're all related. Everything is connected. This is such an indigenous notion. And the Pope draws on that. The Pope draws on the fact that we need to listen to each other. This is such an indigenous value, that we need to gather in circles, that we listen to each other with the intent of growth and education, that we learn from each other. And so I think that's what that's what I have, what I'd like to share with. There's so many things that we could talk about. We could spend a week, just Mary Elena could spend a week talking to us about Indigenous practices. I could too. But what I want to leave with is an optimism about Indigenous peoples, at least where I am, is that our Indigenous peoples are growing in education. We have more students, more people studying doctoral level work. We have more people who are reintegrating their spiritual practices in their daily lives. So this is a very optimistic situation we have in Canada, and it's helping us to heal from the previous tragedies that we have experienced. We take very seriously the Pope's apology when he came to Canada to speak to the Indigenous peoples. He said, "What happened to you was a despicable evil, but now let's walk together in order that we can all heal." So when one group heals, we all feel the benefits of it. So that's what I'd like to conclude with today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daryl. That was really inspiring. And I like how you pointed out, some of the similarities that exist for Indigenous peoples all over the world, but they are lived differently, and people are at different places
Yeah.
in their own cultures as well. I'd like to, if you have time, for a couple of questions. What is your time like? Do you have
Well,
some
a few
time?
minutes. I'm
Okay.
happy to stay for a few minutes.
Okay. So if anyone has a question or a comment that they would like to address to Father Daryl, I encourage you to make yourself known. And I think somebody is looking after that end of things. So you can put your hand up or just speak out.
Maybe a lot of information to take in before we can develop questions.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, yeah.
Mudita, do you have something you want to say?
Yes, I put my hand up, but I think you didn't see it.
No, I
I
didn't.
like that Father Daryl, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
liked your last comment. Listen with the intent of growth. And I think the whole world is looking at Indigenous people because they are the ones who know how to conserve, preserve, and take the world, despite all that we've done to the planet, they have all the secrets with them. if only we have the ears to listen and the heart
Yeah.
to take it in. So I am Mudita Sodal, and my area of my passion is eco-spirituality. So this whole thing about circular, there is no high and no low, no hierarchy, everybody's together, and what is done to one is going to affect everybody else. And we can see this when we look at climate change. So thank you for that wonderful presentation. It echoes with what I believe in passionately. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I know in India there are a lot of what we call eco theologians, women who are studying the environment, climate change, because it affects everybody around the world. And in India too, we see the effects of climate change. Same here. In Canada, we have forest fires. There is a fire going on now in Western Canada. The smoke has become so intense that it has reached Europe. The fire from our fires in Canada have reached Europe now. The damage is global. You know, when you have a fire in Manitoba in the middle of Canada and the fires are so intense, the smoke going up into the atmosphere, going across half of the world, tells you that the climate change affects all of us. It's not just groups of people here and there and isolated. It's a global phenomenon. We're all connected, whether for good or for bad, for healing or for destruction.
Mary Elena?
Sheila, yes, Father Darrell, I was really, really happy listening to you as you shared, pointing out the similarities. And it's just a comment, when I was listening, the Indigenous people in Canada, as well as the Indigenous people, how you said anywhere, they're very close to the earth, to natural resources, and they are the ones who are hit the most. So I really feel what we are listening to is the resilience of this community. Yes. So thank you, Father Darrell, for bringing us the Canadian people.
Well, Sister Sheila began with that prayer, the Thanksgiving prayer. I hear we have Mohawks, Haudenosaunee people with us at this conference, and we've heard it several times already. This Thanksgiving prayer where they thank all of God's creatures, plants, animals, humans, the earth, the moon, the star, the waters. It's all something to be thankful for and to appreciate. God, it's all God. It's all gift. All of it is gift to us. So how can we learn to appreciate it? The Mohawks say we have to say thank you, gratitude. Yeah. And if we don't have this spirit of gratitude, we're just going to see a global situation in decline, brutal decline. We see it already. I mean, it's all, there are some scientists who said we've already gone too far. There's no going back. There's some scientists in England who say, we've gone too far. But the Pope said, no, that's not true. There is always hope. And that's what the encyclical Laudato Si is. It's 10 years old now. And that's the message. There's still hope to do something for this creation that we live in.
Thank you, Daryl. One thing that struck me as you were speaking with Maria Elena is that in 2014, I went to Torpa to visit, and I brought with me 3 Indigenous women, and one of them was Isabel Mewasaki, who is also Ojibwe like Daryl. So your people have been to Torpa in the form of Isabel, one of the grandmothers. She's from a different community than Daryl is from, but kind of a funny thing is that in Canada, Indigenous peoples, rather than referring to them by their names as nations, became known as Indians. So when we went to India, your people, the Munda communities that we went to, were calling the Indigenous women that came with me, calling them Red Indians. Indians and Red Indians.
Sometimes it's East Indians. We say West Indians.
Yes, and East Indians, yes. but they
Because
really,
Columbus thought we were he thought he was in India when he came to North America. He thought, oh, we're in India. And so there are all these people are forms of Indians. Yeah, that's what, but it's stuck for we still hear the word
yes,
referred to as Indians.
Indian,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
So is there one last comment or question that somebody would like to? I can't see the hands, so
Just speak up.
I'll just speak up.
If nobody has a question, then I only made a comment. Father Darrell, there's a lot of conversations now around shamanism.
Okay.
Shamanism, correct? And the wisdom we
Right.
get from the shamans. And Thomas Berry has a whole dream of the earth, and he talks about coding and all. What are your views about shamanism and the coding system that Thomas Berry talks about?
So so among ourselves, among Indigenous people that I know, we don't say shaman, we say medicine people.
Okay,
So
medicine.
they have this gift of medicinal healing. So there are people all around the world who have this gift to bring healing to others. We see it within Christian faith. You know, Jesus himself was a healer. Talk about a shaman. He was the grandest of all shamans. He knew how to bring healing to people, how to make people feel at ease, people who are traumatized, people who experience demons. He was able to calm them and and give them peace. So, are there other people like that around the world? Yes, we might call them shamans. In where I'm from, we say medicine people, women too, not just men. Women can be very healing uh, experiences of medicine people, and so we do have medicine people. And this is how it works. This is how it's been working. First of all, they might go to the priest in our communities and say, you know, can you help me? I'm going through trauma, or I'm going through illness, or I'm depressed, or and if the priest can't help, sometimes because not all priests are healers, you know, if that doesn't work, then they go to the medicine men, and they go in secret because the medicine men were told, the church said, don't go to them. Don't go to them. They're not Christians. They're doing some other form of spirituality that isn't Christian. But people haven't given up on the power of their own spiritual power. So they go to medicine people, and it's what I've experienced is like talk therapy. Do you know what I mean? It's like going to a therapist, and you sit there and you just talk, and then the medicine person listens, and then they can offer advice sometimes, or they can say a prayer with you. Sometimes they'll do a drum song. Sometimes they'll do a smudging. They'll do some sort of ritual. And in that ritual, we believe there's healing. And all I know is that people feel better after the visit. So, are there shamans and medicine? Now, there may be deeper experiences of shamanic culture that I'm not aware of, that may have already disappeared from the planet. You know, deep shamanic practices that involve, you know, even some forms of narcotics and drugs and things to induce a kind of trance, a kind of mysticism. But that's not my experience. Medicine people here, shamans here, have been people you can go to receive relief from mental concerns, spiritual, emotional pain, spiritual pain. You can go to these people and they offer something, even if it's just they listen to you and you tell them what your problem. There's healing just in that. Eh? So that's what I don't know, have any more knowledge about shamans than what I've experienced here in Canada. It's more like helpers to help us heal. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's what
Many years ago,
shamanism.
uh,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you. Many years ago, I was in the tribal place, and I went and saw, they call them gonga and all sorts of things. I didn't believe it at that time, but now it's all in, a lot of research
Yeah,
is being done, and I do see a lot of goodness in it. There's a lot
yeah,
of positivism in it. Thank you, Father.
yeah.
Thank you
That is
very
true.
much.
There was a time when we didn't place value into it. We thought it was crazy or kooky or strange or bizarre. And now we're beginning to step back a bit and say, what is really happening? Is there any truth to the power that is being displayed by by their wisdom and by their gifts. It is a gift. Not everyone can do it. So thanks.
Thank you
Sheila,
very
this has been a
much for the
wonderful
Daryl.
experience.
Yes, thank you very much, Daryl. It's been wonderful to have you with us, and we understand that you've got to go
I've
to your
got to go now.
conference. So
Bye-bye. Thank you. And God
thank
bless
you.
everybody here today. May we
Thank
all
you.
grow in our appreciation of the Indigenous peoples in our planet. Amen.
Thank you, Daryl.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.
Miigwech. Okay, now I'm going to suggest that Mary Elena, if you could play your video, and then right after your video, we will have another video that Rochelle will put up for us, and it will be by Mrs. Eva Canoe, who belongs to the Orowari tribe in the Amazon. And she is a mother and a grandmother, and she is going to share her life experience and faith with us. She has been working all her life to defend the protection of the Amazonian rainforest and the lands of her people. So, Maria Elena, I'll get you to go ahead, and then Rochelle, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Sheila. This is a very short video, which just gives us a glimpse of work in Torpa, mainly with the Munda tribe in the state of Jharkhand. Char means forest, Khand means land, so the land of forests.
मेरा नाम ग्लोरिया तपनो है।
मेरा नाम रोशन गुड़िया है।
12 महीना
हम मुंडा समुदाय से हैं। अल्ले मुंडा होड़ो को तान ले
समझो काम से नारी सुकर
हम चाहते हैं कि हमारी संस्कृति, जमीन और जंगल हम बचा के रखें।
हम खेतों में धान, मड़ुआ और सब्जी लगाते हैं। जंगल के फल फूल और खुकड़ी चुनते हैं।
पहले शिक्षण नहीं था, पर अब हमें महिला विकास केंद्र के सहयोग से ट्रेनिंग मिली। इसीलिए अब हम लाह की खेती कर रहे हैं।
पहले हमें कोई समझाने वाले नहीं थे। महिला विकास केंद्र से ट्रेनिंग मिलने के बाद अब हम आधुनिक रूप से खेती कर रहे हैं। इससे अब हमें बहुत खुशी मिलती है।
So that's our video, and our ongoing priority is to build change makers. You know, the many of them you saw in the video were some of our volunteers, so that they will drive the community from the forefront and ensure that the community will be self-sustaining and preserve their traditional wisdom. So thank you, and over to Rachel.
Oui, bonjour à tout le monde. Je vais vous emmener en Amazonie vers une amie qui s'appelle Eva Canoe. C'est parti. Bonjour, mon nom est Eva Canoë, je vis dans les...
Morning, I am Eva Canoe. I live in Brazil and I would like to share my Indigenous perspective with you. For example, I reflect on the Indigenous culture and its contribution to the current world. So, based on what I perceive, our indigenous culture from the very beginning of the invasion of Brazil has contributed very much to the Indo-Brazilian society. Also, in relation to food and the way of living and organizing the life and the wisdom and our culture that is our specific culture and that is very distinct from the others because it is based on interconnection of education, healthcare, social organization, community, spirituality, and our connection with the earth and the land, which is fundamental. So these dimensions are fundamental in our current world. We've contributed very much, and we're going to contribute very much also in the future with our way of living together as Indigenous people. And we use very much the term community. We continuously live this collective dimension in hunting, construction, and so on. And our relationship with nature is also unique because we are an integral part of nature. And even though there are many changes in our relationship with the forest, the rivers, the nature, we do our utmost to preserve Amazonia and provide a continuity to our life as Indigenous people and specific individuals in our unique way of living. How do we see the current world? This current world made of progress, growth, is a world that we see with worry. We are not against progress, but we want to look at progress from our own perspective because progress and development of a country should guarantee good living conditions for everybody. And that is not the way in which we see the development now in the world. The current world is unhinged. There is wealth, but there is also lots of violence and wars and a lack of respect. And we want to change humanity. The people in the world need more solidarity and more sharing and to be more united. So the indigenous world has learned Portuguese, which is not our language because each people has its own language. And then there's another positive thing. We've learned to read and write because we are people that are related to oral communication and we do everything by speaking. So it's good that we've learned to speak and to write and read read. But then there are negative things that we've also received from the modern world. That is this world based on knowing, exploring, distracting. It is an uncontrolled progress based on individualism. Those are the negative things that we live in our society, in this world that is developing in a way that is out of control and that is worrying. And our war as indigenous people in Brazil is the protection of our lands and the fight for our original rights, meaning our customs, education, the right to health care, and also our borders and limitation, a reduction of the invasion. It is not correct and just to invade us. When Brazil was invaded, Brazilian land belonged to the indigenous people, and our fight for our rights against the Mercotemporal project that is the line that is going to reduce our surface is our priority, because Mercotemporal is a threat and the death project, it is an attack against the life of indigenous people. So being indigenous and Indian is something that makes me proud. I am honored to say that I am Indian, I am indigenous, I come from an indigenous people that was almost being destroyed by colonialism. I am very proud to be Indian due to our cultural wealth and our fights, and thanks to our resistance and our spirituality, each human being can receive our ancient knowledge, and that has kept us alive up to our present time.
Nous nous protégeons, mais en même temps, il n'y a personne pour nous protéger. Merci à Eva, elle aurait bien aimé être là, mais du village aujourd'hui c'était compliqué.
We would like to be there, and so the connection. We would have liked to have to be here with us, but the connection is not good from her village on some days, and today it is not possible.
Thank you, Rochelle, for sharing that video with us and at least bringing Eva here via the video. So now for our remaining time, which is very short, I'd like to open it up for any comments or questions that anyone has for Maria Elena, who shared so beautifully on the concept of Accra, that way that the Adivasi have of centering community management in their culture, and it incorporates so much, not just their cultural traditions, but identity, and playing a crucial role for creating a sense of belonging and continuation of the culture. So please, anyone who would like to make a comment or ask a question, please feel free. There's lots of gratitude in the chat box.
There was a question for you, Marilena, in the chat asking how people are related with different groups or tribes.
I didn't see the question. Could you please repeat it, Rochelle? I didn't see it.
Yes. How is the relationships between
yes, I've seen it now. I've seen it
in
now.
different
Yes.
groups or tribes?
This very there's a very loving, cordial relationship between the tribes. Yes. Now, firstly, let me say, I am no expert on this topic. Yes. I am just exposed more to one particular tribe, that is the Munda tribe. But in the region, we also have we do come in contact with the Santalis and the Orams and the Kadiyas as well. Yes. Now, so my conversation is limited to these tribes. Yes. They live together. There's much that they have in common. But the place where we are working, there's a majority of the Munda tribe. Yes. So I don't know if this answers your question, Marie Cruz.
Yes, thank you, Marilena.
Yes. I just want to say a big thank you to the JPIC International and the hub as well for for this beautiful topic on Indigenous culture and wisdom, the traditions, because it is an issue that we really urgently need to address. And there's, besides so much of learning that we are enabled in our conversations with them, it is like a cry from these people, because there are so many prophetic voices among them, but it is a way they need to be channeled, they need to be drawn out, they need options to express themselves. And I really was happy to be part of this conversation. But as I say again, I am no expert in this matter. It's just the last 8 years that I have lived here in Torpa. And previously, with a break in between, previously too, I have been here in Torpa. So thanks again.
Thank you, Maria Elena. So to conclude, Rochelle has her hand up.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to say that I was moved by something that was said by Doriol regarding listening, because Eva said that when the white arrives, they asked to see the head of the tribe, but there were no heads because all decisions are made collectively. People gather around and use a symbol of the bird that inspires people, and every person has a feather and is inhabited by the spirit through the feather. So you can see synodality and conversation with the spirit here, and that is typical of the Indian culture. It is one of the many things that we can learn from them.
Thank you, Rochelle. So we've come to the end of our time, and I'd like to thank our presenters and thank everyone for being here to share in these presentations, to listen and to learn. And I think one of the things that I take away from this is kind of a reaffirmation that Indigenous peoples worldwide are extremely varied in their cultures, languages, places they come from, their roots, their rituals, but that there are some similarities in their worldview, which is based in gratitude and in great connection with nature. They also share a lot of hardship, a lot of human rights abuses and land rights abuses. And Maria Elena, you listed them in kind of three groupings: urbanization and modernization that affects the human rights and land rights of Indigenous peoples, the loss of land and their resources that they have been given to manage and to care for, and cultural appropriation, that dominant cultures are taking aspects of Indigenous culture and kind of reworking them in ways that were not originally meant. You also pointed to some solutions forward, Maria Elena, in community engagement, education and awareness, government support and policy. And I think from a perspective from Canada, I would say that those are all very important as well. And I'd like to just leave us, I think, with one other word of hope, and that was from Father Darrell, who talked about the Pope's encyclical Laudato Si, that how that gives an Indigenous kind of perspective on a way to understand our faith in a different way, to understand it as a faith that is based on gratitude for all creation as a gift that is given generously and that we are part of and connected with, which can help us to change our kind of mental models that we are socialized into, which have often become ways of seeing creation as a resource to be exploited rather than a creation to be celebrated in gratitude. So I'd like to end with those words and thank everyone for being here.